So Kel'el Ware, five-star center out of North Little Rock, Arkansas, class of 2022, will be on the Oregon basketball team in the fall this year. And there are high expectations, I would say, for him. Understandably so. He's a top 20 recruit in the country. I believe he's number 16. And I think a reasonable question to ask is he going to be Oregon basketball's next star? Is he going to have the sort of career where we look back and go, or maybe it's one season because he's a physically gifted guy, could be a one and done, but we'll have to see how he produces as a freshman and such. But it's a reasonable question to say, can he be a number one? Can he be a leader? And it's possible, I suppose. I don't see him being a true number one on the team just because of the nature of the position he plays. Is he going to be a high impact player? I expect him to be. Yes. So, and what should we expect from him is he'll definitely play as a freshman. The question is how he will play and how much he will play. Because he is 6'11", 7 feet tall. He is very athletic, and he's listed as a center. Now, when I think about the Oregon basketball roster going into 2022, as it currently stands, and as I'm recording this, Will Richardson, Quincy Guerrier, Davion Harmon, and Folly Dante, all as of right now, coming back to the Ducks. Jacob Young, of course, done. Eric Williams announced that he's going to begin his professional career. Best of luck to Eric out there. So Ware could slide in a couple positions. I personally would play him at the power forward, right? With Frank and Folly in the middle. If you want to go, a little bit of a smaller lineup with Quincy at the 4 and Kel'el at the 5, I think that that's fine from time to time. But I mean, if you're looking at a starting lineup right now, I would play him as a power forward, have Quincy at the 3, and one of the big fellas roaming the paint, because I think that gives you a lot of length, athleticism, shot blocking, but also versatility. And when you just watch him play, he needs to learn, as part of the 24/7 scouting report, he has to learn how to play through physicality and with physicality as well. That's going to be one of the adjustments he'll have to make when he starts playing Power 5 Division I college basketball. So I think that easing him into the lineup and not forcing him to be down low, I think the best way to do that is to have him play the stretch 4, because he can step out and shoot it. He's got a clean release. He can catch and shoot. He hits from distance. There's no issue there. So you don't have to worry about having two non-shooters on the court, which you definitely don't want to have in basketball in 2022. It's just not something you can afford. You can have one and get away with it, but you definitely cannot have two. It's why Franken and Folly basically never played together this past season, because neither one can really even hit a mid-range jumper reliably at this point in their careers. But when you watch Kel'el Ware, he can dribble, he runs the court well, he throws down very athletic dunks. He's very capable of catching lobs. I'm picturing a zone offense, which was a problem for Oregon this past year, where you got one of the big fellas sitting at the free throw line and Kel'el Ware roaming the baseline or going around on the perimeter. I think that that's a really valuable piece. But I think that the star expectations are going to be very, very high, right? He's a 5-star recruit, and he's a big name. He's very physically impressive. If you watch even just his highlight tape, and I don't have access to full games, so that's what I'm operating off of here, but a lot of his highlights are based off of his athleticism. What I mean is he's playing high school basketball in Little Rock, Arkansas. So he's not exactly coming from one of the CIF leagues in California, right? Or a league down in Florida or Texas, where they have a lot more bodies who could maybe present more of a challenge to him, right? And so I think that there's going to be a big adjustment there. I don't see him getting a lot of early post touches in one-on-one situations. I think he will play a true stretch 4 or stretch 5, depending on how Dana wants to manipulate the lineups there. But I have high hopes for him, because I think he can get to a very, very high ceiling just because of his physical traits, the likes of which most players cannot get to. But I don't actually expect him to come in and be Oregon's number one go-to guy, dominate right away. I think there'll be a buildup. I think there will be an adjustment period in there. And I expect him to be productive even once he starts playing as a freshman. I assume he would be in the starting lineup, but I bet that, and you can save the receipts on all of this, and I'm happy to be wrong and such, but I imagine that, the college basketball season starts, I think, sometime in November and goes, at least when Oregon does what they're supposed to, which is make the NCAA tournament. And hopefully they'll be back there next year. goes all the way through March. It's about, 4 or 5 months of the year. I bet you the last 2 to 3 months of the year will be more productive than the first couple statistically, right? As I think that once he, starts to understand how to play with his size, how to be physical, how to, use his athleticism and skills rather than just having them exist and that be it, right? When you watch a lot of the highlights, there's no one on the court physically who can match up with him. So he has to learn how to play against his equals, essentially, because there's no one who's exactly as physical as him, but there are bigs who will try and push him around, who will try to keep him out of the paint, who will throw an elbow every now and then when the ref isn't looking. So he has the physical traits to be a star, right? Kind of like, he reminds me a lot of Chet Holmgren. He actually weighs more than Chet Holmgren. He's 15 pounds heavier than Gonzaga's standout freshman from this past year. But when you watch Chet play, he was often neutralized by guys who were shorter than him, but who were bigger, who were stronger. And Ware will need to get into the weight room and need to put on a few pounds and such, and just kind of have a mentality change and understand he can't just coast through and dominate the way that he did in high school. He has to learn to use his skills a little bit more in a prolific sense. He's capable of doing that. He's got the skills. Everything he does, he makes look very easy because for him, it sort of is. And he's just such a unique physical body that the ceiling is very, very high. But, Chet Holmgren this year averaged 14 points, just under 10 boards, and 3.5, 4 blocks a game. I think Kel'el Ware could get to that level of production. I don't expect him to be there right away. I think if in his freshman year, by the end of it, right, when you look at all the stats from the entire season, if he's averaging, around 10 points, 6 to 7 rebounds, 1 to 2 blocks per game, I think that would be a guy who's coming on strong at the end of the year, right? And will be raising his averages up because I think that in the early going, he won't play a ton, but I think he'll start to, get more comfortable, get in the system, understand what it takes to play Division I college basketball, and then he'll start to be a high impact player. I expect him to play from the start. I would assume he will be in the starting lineup from the time he gets onto campus, and ultimately the season starts later this year in November, which I'm excited for. But I think that the expectations should not be that this guy's going to come in, average a double-double and 4 blocks a game from the moment he steps on the court. He has the physical traits to put up those sorts of numbers. I just don't see him happening right away. But the potential for him there in this lineup with the players he could have around him, he could be a very, very good player for Dana Altman and the Ducks. I appreciate everyone listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.